wide receivers, let's talk about the guys that we like more than we maybe typically do.
So Brian Thomas went off last week, and I don't expect him to have nearly as good of a stat line. I mean, that was his career high. Had a couple of touchdowns. Mac Jones has tunnel vision to Brian Thomas Jr. The matchup, Lindsay, is actually not good. The Raiders are tough against perimeter receivers. It's so weird, but when you look at the stats, like they held Mike Evans, Jamar Chase to like really kind of modest or worse stat lines. But I'm sticking with Brian Thomas Jr. because of the target share and because, well, I mean, this is going to probably be a pretty ugly game, but Mac Jones loves peppering this rookie with targets. So I'm going to stick with Brian Thomas Jr. and I'm going to stick with Juwan Jennings. I know last week was bad. It was bad for almost everybody in that game on Thursday night against the Rams. The Dolphins have allowed 5 touchdowns to wide receivers in the last 4 weeks. They've also given up the 12th most points per game to the perimeter in that time. And so I expect the 49ers offense to bounce back a little bit in terms of what they do through the air. Even though it's not, Miami's defense is not awful against perimeter receivers for the entirety of the season, but they haven't been as good against them lately. So I'm going to stick with Juwan Jennings and expect a bounce back game from not only him, but Brock Bowers, especially when you have that running back situation where we're not exactly sure what we're going to get from Patrick Taylor.
Who are we sitting at wide receiver?
You probably got to play DK. I get it. I understand, but I just want to warn you guys. I mean, it's very strange for me to have one wide receiver from the same team as a start and another as a sit. But I mean, look at the numbers. Like DK has failed to score more than 10.6 points in his last 4 games, 6 or fewer targets in 3 of those games, and he's failed to produce regardless of really the strength of the opponent. And so even though this week's matchup against Minnesota is good on paper, I'd beware DK Metcalf this week. And then Calvin Ridley. Mason Rudolph's going to start. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I don't really think it matters. It's much ado about nothing. Ridley at 9 points last week, despite a good matchup against Cincinnati. He's failed to score more than 12.9 points in 4 of his last 5 games. The last time he played the Colts, he had 0.9 of a point. It's hard to play any Titans pass catchers. I know Okonkwo had a big game last week.